This is the Anti-Suit Entrepreneur Podcast. Here's Chris Lopez and Jason Wells.
Today's radio show is going to continue the theme that Jason and I have talked about in the last couple of radio episodes. The first one we did right around January 1st of 2015 this year was all about what you needed to do in setting goals and actually getting things done this year. And so we're going to kind of continue that theme of, okay, you set some goals or you set some adjustments or you set some things you want to accomplish this year. So we're going to continue that theme to make sure you're not hitting those common stopping points or getting off track or doing those things that we've seen over the years that prevent so many people from actually becoming a successful entrepreneur. Someone transitioning from a job into an entrepreneur and living life on your terms, or if you already have a business up and running, or you've got some income coming in from your business, how to increase it to higher levels this year. So the first topic we're going to discuss today is don't procrastinate. Now, Jason, this is a very simple tip or a very simple statement. And I think a lot of times people don't really understand the importance of it. So when you hear people saying things as to why they don't get things done in their business, or you see people procrastinating, like what thoughts pop in your mind?
To be honest, I get really upset because I don't know, it's just BS, and it's more upset for them because I see them just kind of pissing their life away. And what I mean by that is, and this just really may sound harsh, and I'm going to digress for a second just so people understand what I mean. So like if you ever browse Facebook, which maybe once a day I might go through and just see what's going on with my friends. I probably spend about 10, 15 minutes. I swear half of the posts are people posting like motivational things or like, this person has no arms and no legs and look what they accomplished. And it's always that kind of stuff. And it's like, I can just tell you from the numbers of stuff that I see, it's clear to me that people believe in the whole thing of perseverance. And if you work hard, you can get something. But the thing is, if you post it, you better live it. And what I mean by that is like you post it out there, it's no different than telling people that. And so if you're telling people that, then you better live it. And I can promise you the number of people, the percentage that are posting that kind of stuff, a very low percentage of those people are actually living what they're saying. And so now, if you're one of those people, am I like, oh, well, I'm kicking your butt right now and I think you're a terrible person? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying be aware of what you're doing. And be aware of what people generally think, because I know that's what people generally think. You can just look at, like I said, Facebook and what people post, yet their actions don't support that. So that's why I get mad when people procrastinate. And when you hear don't procrastinate, people think, well, duh, I've heard that a million times. Well, if you've heard it a million times, then why are you procrastinating? Is my question. And so I'll just leave you with this. How many times you said, I'll do it tomorrow, and tomorrow turned into 2 weeks, which turned into 2 months. I'm sure you can jump in on this, Chris, but that's just kind of how I feel or what I think of when you say, or when somebody procrastinates, you ask the question, what comes to mind?
When you were talking about the Facebook analogy, which I agree with, it made me think of a Teddy Roosevelt quote, and I'm pretty sure most people, at least Americans listening to this podcast, have probably heard this quote, maybe in middle school or high school history class or whatever. But Teddy Roosevelt said something along the lines of, this one isn't word for word, but speak softly and carry a big stick, and you'll go far in life. That's kind of what I always think of when I see these, as you're saying, people constantly posting the super success stories and motivations on Facebook. Is if you're saying that, you better be doing stuff yourself and making your own headway to achieve your own goals. And I think that quote, at least to me, it speaks a lot, because to me, it basically says, let your actions speak louder than your words. And so that translates into social media, as you were pointing out, of, well, rather than posting, motivational stuff all the time, or these different, the different trending, going viral stuff that has going on every couple hours, instead of reposting all that stuff, rather spend that time and spend the energy on getting your own stuff done and going out there and having success in your own life.
Can I jump in, Chris? It's just something that came to mind. Okay, that's a great point. And so how can you take those two things and match them? Is it wrong to post that stuff? No. This is what I would rather see. I would rather see you read a motivational quote or see something, maybe somebody else on Facebook that's doing it, that's breaking this rule and isn't doing anything. They're preaching, but they're not practicing what they preach. Wherever you get the quote, and let it motivate you, and then have you do something. Then go on Facebook and say, I saw this quote. There's been something I've been wanting to work on, or something I wanted to do. Based on that quote I saw this morning, today I did these things. And so I just wanted to share that with people. Like, that quote was great for me, and this is what I did. I would rather see that than just somebody reposting some image. I don't know. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's making sense,
you
Chris.
hit the nail on the head. And so we're not going to turn this into the whole radio show and discussing, what people are posting on Facebook or not, but it's just very, very relevant since, I think pretty much every, adult and teenager in the U.S. is on Facebook on a pretty consistent basis. So, we're on this side, we're not sitting there right next to you throughout the day. We honestly don't know what you're doing, what you're not doing, what projects you're supposed to be getting work done, and, all this stuff, we just don't know. So you have to ask yourself, what's stopping you from moving forward or making progress on current projects or activities that are actually going to move your business forward or actually help you go out there and become a successful entrepreneur? And there's a bazillion reasons. I was starting a project. I started this project a couple months ago, trying to figure out how to get subtitles on some of our training videos so we could make them more friendly for people who are hard of hearing and deaf, and then eventually translate them into multiple languages. And, it just opens up a can of worms. And really with anything, I want to do this, and then there's, 50 things pop up you have to figure out. Or I want to get this marketing plan going over here, or I want to get this website set up, or I want to do this. There's always things that pop up that can get you off track, that will get you frustrated, that will get you ticked off and irritated, that will make you want to throw your computer monitor against the wall and just say, screw it, and go do something completely else. Those are all normal things that people go through, and Jason and I go through this probably on a weekly basis with all the different projects we're working on and stuff. It's just part of the process. But what makes the difference between a winner and a loser is, they both might go out there and complain or, bitch about, this stupid thing and this, I can't stand this. Jason and I certainly do that. We have our little sessions where we spat off from this stupid thing I did this day, wasted all this time, or blah, 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 blah. Fine. Both winners and losers do that. The difference, though, is winners maybe say it once and then get back on the horse, get back on the bicycle, or get back in front of their computer and start figuring out the problem. Okay, I left off here. Where'd I go back on there? Whereas the loser, I'll start that tomorrow, or I'll do that in 2 weeks, as Jason was saying. Or, it's just too hard. I'm gonna go scroll around Facebook for a few hours, or whatever. Jason, have you had any frustrations, in the last 7 days, for projects that you've been working on that made you want to punch a hole in the drywall in your office?
Not quite punch a hole. That was probably a couple months ago with something. But yeah, I could think of maybe 3 things this week where I was just like, God, man, I just want this done. It's like, I'll give you an example. I was working on something, and I was on a program that was super stable. It even had backup features, and I literally lost 5 hours of work this week. Just, I mean, I was like, I mean, actually, that was pretty close to wanting to put a hole in the wall. Because that's really frustrating, because one thing that really is a bug for me is I can't stand doing something over again. To me, it's like a waste of life. I don't know. I just get a bug about that. It's just one of those things that drives me nuts. And so you're right. I could have been like, you know what? Screw it. I'm not going to mess around with this. I'm done. And I didn't, because it had to be done. Yeah, it sucked that I lost it, but there's probably some fault in my part. I haven't quite figured out technology-wise what I did wrong, but I'm sure there's some fault there somewhere. Well, actually, I could tell you, I could have exported it and saved it somewhere as like my own like manual backup. I guess my feeling with the technologies, I shouldn't have to do that. But if you want to, at the end of the day, I was at fault. I should have done something, because there was a lot of information there that I should have backed up, and I didn't. But yeah, I mean, exactly what you're saying happens to all of us. It's just that I don't know that everyone handles it the same, and we all bitch about it, but not everyone moves forward. And I think that's an excellent point on your part.
Now, kind of another thing that goes along with not procrastination, or not procrastinating and getting things accomplished, help you move forward towards your goals and what you want to achieve, in the grand scheme of things, in 2015 and beyond, is the whole idea of sacrifice. Delayed gratification a lot of times is used, but you have to sacrifice. I mean, that is the bottom line. And Jason, when we were getting our notes organized for today's radio show, you had started mentioning an example or a story of sacrificing.
Yeah, I had a guy years and years ago that I was trying to work with on a project, and he just really liked college football. That was like his thing. And here's the thing. If you want to be an employee and you want to work for somebody and you want to do your 40 hours and Saturday college football is your thing and that's what makes your life happy, hey, I don't begrudge anyone for that. Everyone's got their thing. But when that's the one day of the week where you can get things done on your entrepreneur project and you're spending money on that because you're inviting a bunch of friends over, you're buying beer, you're doing a bunch of stuff, you're wasting one day, which is a really good day, to focus in on your business, because that was pretty much established and that was always an ongoing conflict that day. I'm sorry, but I don't think somebody wants it bad enough when they're not willing to sacrifice things like that. Now, the only other alternative is somebody has something that's really important to them, then they're going to find another time, or they're going to rearrange their week some way or somehow so they can do it some other way so they can have both. That is possible, but you have to really be aggressive in the rest of your week, and you have to be very disciplined in the bits and chunks and the small things that you do throughout the rest of the week. If that one day that happens to be in conflict with what you want to do, and most people aren't able to do that. And I shouldn't say able, they're not willing to do that. And so I guess, there's a lot of things that I did that I really did not want to do when I got my start. Like, I can tell you, it sucks sometimes. Like, it's just not fun, because you're just like, but like when you do something that you want, like, it's never all going to be good to get there. Like, nothing that's great is going to be all, great. It's not going to be fun getting there. I think the thing that deceives people, especially in entrepreneurship, is people say, "Oh, find something that find something that you really, really like, and if you find something you really, really like, then everything will solve itself. You got to love what you do." I think that's a great advice, but I think that one is deceiving people a little bit, because I think people think that what they really, really love or like is going to be all good. And that's not what that saying. What that saying is saying to people, in my view, and you can tell me what you think about this, Chris, is that everything that's great that you want is going to have good and bad. And if you don't love what you do, you're not going to get through the bad. And that's how I interpret that saying. And that's my point with sacrifice.
And so, what I think a good exercise for our listeners to do out there is, what are you willing to sacrifice to help you achieve your goals in 2015? And we don't necessarily mean, to cut things completely out of your life, like Jason's example, the guy who loves college football. We're not saying, hey, never ever watch college football again or never do anything. Or if you really like doing, this or that, or going on the weekends and playing a sport or whatever, we're not saying you have to not do it again. But you have to sacrifice something or rearrange your schedule. Fine, you want to spend, all day Saturday, tailgating and drinking and watching college football, which I'm not knocking. I love doing that too. Then bust your ass during the week, with a very organized schedule, getting up a half hour earlier or going to bed a half hour later to get some work done on your business or to get some work done towards your goals. And, earn that thing you love so much. Because what that will do, number one, it's not going to help you achieve your stuff more. Number two, you're going to enjoy it a lot more when you're out there doing it because it's, you've had a very productive week or you got a lot of things done. It's very similar on a grander scale of when you got that to-do list sitting on your desk or the refrigerator for days or weeks. Oh, you got to get all this stuff done. And once you cross everything off, it feels great. Well, kind of a similar effect. Hey, if you've got these things you love doing and you really don't want to give it up because it's going to affect who you are, fine. But you have to figure, okay, in order for me to keep doing what I love here, what am I going to do elsewhere throughout my time and elsewhere in my activities so I can keep doing this and keep with my responsibilities with my job and my family, but still carve out time to achieve my goals. So, hey, I certainly sacrificed when I was getting things going, and I still sacrifice things when I want to, when I'm starting a new project or just something, doesn't go as planned or just things change. That's something, that's a trait that all successful people have, not just entrepreneurs, but I think really all successful people do. So, I know I started getting into some the next talking point here, which is just some tips for getting over, for not procrastinating and getting some things done. Remember, it's those little steps, those little things that actually end up making or breaking yourself in the long term. Achieving your goal or not achieving your goal. Just like we say a lot of times on this radio show, you eating that cheeseburger, fries, and Coke, one meal on a Friday is not going to make you fat or give you a heart attack years down the road. No, that one meal isn't. But if you consistently do that or eat that, yeah, that's going to catch up with you and you're going to have some health issues from it. Same thing with getting your things accomplished here. When Jason and I are working on our projects and we get to our frustration points or things aren't going the right way, guess what? We sit down and say, okay, you know what? What I was trying to do is absolutely not working. I need to go back and figure out something else or go back and get one thing done to head back in the right direction. So break things down into little bite-sized things and at least get something done. And I was having a conversation a couple weeks ago with a few people I'm mentoring, and a lot of them are working on getting up like an online presence between writing blog entries and doing email newsletter marketing, doing some YouTube videos, just getting that content out there on the internet for their business and for their and for what they're doing. And a trend I noticed between almost every single person I've coached over the years is, I want to, a lot of times I want to write one blog article or one email or one YouTube video every single week, which is, hey, that's a great goal when it comes to marketing, getting things up and running. And then when they start doing it, it seems to take like 6 weeks to do one thing. And they get that done, And then, oh, okay, then I'll get another one done. Then 2 months later, and it's like, guys, what, I have to. I don't want to sound rude, but like, what are you doing here? The rate you're going at is not going to get you to where you want to go, and that's my position as a mentor, is to call out those things. And so what I told those people to do, and you can adapt this to your situation, is, you know what? Block off an hour of time on your calendar, and when you sit down and do something, go get the kitchen timer or go turn on your iPhone timer and set the clock for 60 minutes. And you work like a crazy person. You just totally focus and just work, and that 60 minutes do nothing else to get that project done. And when the timer goes off, you're done. You get up and you walk away and you go do something else. And so this forces people to get very focused and very productive in a short time frame. And so this usually increases productivity, increases people's own satisfaction, because, generally, what's taking them days or weeks to do something, they're getting done in an hour. Now, is it perfect? No, it never is. But I've used these strategies over the years. But you can't worry about perfection, because you actually have to go out there and do something. So those are kind of a couple of tips I wanted to share that I've thought of recently for helping people get over procrastination. So I don't know if you got anything to add on there, Jason.
No, I've never had it put that way, actually, but I actually do stuff like that, but I haven't done it in that rigid of a fashion. So, I mean, I've never like specifically said to myself, okay, I'm going to set a timer and I'm going to do as much as I can in 60 minutes, but I think I've naturally done that. And so I can say that that definitely works when you get focused for an hour and do something.
Now, another topic we want to talk about in today's radio show, and this may sound harsh, but I think it's something we need to talk about, and you have to realize it. And I call this a harsh reality. No one really cares what you do or don't do when it comes to you becoming an entrepreneur and you getting projects done to go out there and change your life. That may sound harsh. No one really cares. And I don't mean that people are going to say, oh, hey, nice work on getting this done. Or if you post something to Facebook, they're not going to click the like button and give you a thumbs up or way to go comment. But I'm talking about really caring. Like, whether I go out there and achieve growth in one of my businesses I'm doing or get a project done, you know what? The world, the population doesn't care. People aren't looking over me and saying, oh, you didn't get this done, or you didn't do this, or hey, you did this great job. And I say this because I think it's a reality that all, entrepreneurs face, especially a lot of the people who follow what we're doing, where you're like a more of a home-based entrepreneur, you're working for yourself in a very small team, oftentimes from a home office or a laptop at Starbucks, is that no one really cares. And so you're not going to get this, great recognition or a bunch of pats on the back when you achieve something. And again, going back to the way social media does things, where, you see all these motivational and viral things of people having success, or you watch movies or TV shows, and the standard plot line is, oh, the person tries something, they have a hard time, and then cue the music, and they start doing stuff, things go their way, and then they go out there and have success, and the movie ends with a celebration or the good people winning, or whatever. And so that affects us, in the way we view ourselves and what we're getting done. And I say this because, you have to find it in yourself as to what's going to make you get up that hour earlier, or make you get up or stay up an hour later, or make you sacrifice something you love to go out there and achieve it. And if you don't have that motivation, or if you don't have that drive in you, you're going to have a problem in getting these things done.
Well, and something I'll add to this. I think a lot of it is when people do have the drive, they try a few things, or they have some success, and then they have some failures, which are inevitable. And then they start second guessing what they're doing. And there's just tried and true things in business you must do. You must be consistent. You must promote and you must continually move forward, even if it's wrong. Trust me. There are so many businesses that have been successful, huge publicly traded companies that grew doing the wrong things because you know what they did do? They moved forward and they continued to move forward. Um, the harsh reality is no one does care. And so the good side of that is no one really cares and they're not laughing at you when you do it wrong. Trust me, they don't even notice. If anything, they're jealous that you're doing something and they're not. So I think, Chris, I really think sometimes when people get started on something and then they start getting a little bit of success, I think things don't go right for a period of time. And you and I have this. It's like you say, this isn't working. We need to readjust and go a different direction. But we don't do it on a whim. I mean, things that are, if you've got something that's proven, such as writing a blog once a week or continuing to talk to people about what product or service you offer, you can't, there's no arguing that. Like, you have to do that. It doesn't matter what business you're in. You have to do those things. So stepping back and taking 2 steps back and saying, well, I got to redo my strategy. That's not on fundamental things. And the harsh reality, of no one cares. No one cares really whether you did it wrong 2 months ago, because if you keep talking about it, somebody is going to raise their hand and say, yeah, I want what you have. Even though you may have, touched them in some way with your product or service in the wrong way, as long as you're not a jerk or unprofessional about it, which I don't think most people are. I personally think most people aren't aggressive enough. So I don't know, does that make sense, Chris, in what you're saying? I'm trying to say that, that no one really cares actually there's an advantage to it too, as well. I mean, it's just, I really think that there's 2 types of people. There's the people that procrastinate, like we talked about, and there's the people that have done a little bit, but then they feel like they've hit a wall, and then they don't do anything, and then they start second guessing themselves. They second guess the process, which could be us if we're mentoring them, which is stupid because all we're teaching is basic stuff that people have been doing for years: sales, marketing, and there's only one. There's just the best way to do it is consistent. And every situation is different, and every person has to adjust a little bit what works for them. But the basic thing is, moving forward, selling, marketing your product or service, whatever it is you're doing. And if you're not doing that, you're not growing. And right or wrong, you're not going to get anywhere if you're not doing those things consistently. And what I often see is under this whole harsh reality umbrella of no one cares whether you do it or you don't, oftentimes what I see is an excuse of, well, I got to change my strategy because the last one isn't working for me. And I often think that's really just an excuse to not doing anything. And again, when you choose that road, as you said, Chris, no one cares.
Well, that's it for today's radio show. So I know Jason and I got into some meaty topics, and a lot of times these topics will get some emotions stirring in you, or maybe something I said or something Jason said, rubs you the wrong way. You know what? That's part of our intent with this radio show. We're not out there, pointing fingers or personally attacking people. Rather, we want to talk about points. And again, we've walked in these shoes before. We've been through this, and we'll go through it again in our lives. We want to talk about points to make you stop and think, make you, question maybe some things you're not doing correctly, or some bad habits or some bad patterns in your business or your life to help you get back on track. So if something I said or something Jason said irritates you, we're like, oh man, those guys are jerks. Fine, call us a jerk. You're not going to hurt me. You're not going to hurt Jason's feelings. Trust me, we've been called worse over the years. But I'd be willing to bet if something we said rubs you the wrong way, it's because what we said struck a chord with you, and we really touched on something that's preventing you from going out there and having success. So if we did, fine, call us nasty names or whatever you want to do, but also take some time, look at what you're doing, look at the activities you are or are not doing, look at your own habits, and make sure not just irritated at yourself for not being the person you know you can be and you should be by getting the right things done to go live life on your terms.